49ers obviously looking to bounce back in Week 8, and we are joined by Yahoo Sports fantasy expert Dalton Del Don to help you succeed in your fantasy matchups. And Dalton, let's start with this game. You have the 49ers. They're facing the Bears in Chicago. What matchup stands out most to you in this contest?
First of all, nice to talk to you again, Keiana. It's been too long. Man, this was supposed to be the year where the Niners had an embarrassment of riches for fantasy to choose, too many to choose from after last year's, injury-ruined season. We'll talk more about Deebo's specific matchup later, but it's clearly Samuel. He's been the one bright spot for the 49ers in fantasy terms this year. And we'll talk a little Elijah Mitchell as well, but man, before the season, I expected to have a lot of matchups for you, and right now it's slim pickings.
Let's talk about one of the beneficiaries, and you brought up his name, Deebo Samuel. In 2 of the last 3 games, he's topped 100 yards. Now, how does Deebo fare against this Bears secondary?
Deebo's been fantastic this season, a top 3 fantasy receiver. He still leads the league in yards after the catch, even with the team already having its bye. Deebo's just been the clear #1 receiver for San Francisco. Like I said earlier, about the only thing that's gone right for the Niners. I have him ranked as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this week against a very vulnerable Chicago secondary.
Yeah, I've got him on my roster, and he is not disappointed yet. But let's talk about another playmaker on offense. Running back Elijah Mitchell. I'm sure fantasy owners were really thrilled with what he did, especially in that rain game against the Colts. Do you think he's primed for maybe an encore performance in Week 8?
Yeah, everyone spent all their free agent budget on Mitchell a few weeks back, only to watch him suffer an immediate injury. But he's clearly San Francisco's lead back right now. The Bears, they have a better pass defense according to DVOA than they do against the run. Mitchell is clearly Shanahan's guy. JaMychal Hasty might be the preferred passing down back. I have Elijah Mitchell as a top 20 fantasy back in this matchup in Chicago in Week 8.
Well, okay, let's talk about the other side of the ball. 49ers defense may be coming off of a rough outing against the Colts, but I always go back to the week prior before their bye, facing the Arizona Cardinals and being able to hold them to a season low. And we know what the Cardinals offense can do. But now going into this week, you've got a rookie quarterback in Justin Fields. You have Nick Bosa, you have Dee Ford. Is it worth giving the 49ers defense a start this week?
Yes, it is. I actually have him as a top 3 fantasy D this week. The lack of interceptions just feels fluky and unlucky, and no quarterback has a higher sack rate than Justin Fields right now. A lot of those sacks came in his NFL debut, and it's not all his fault, but Chicago's offensive line is also a big concern. So I'm firing up San Francisco's fantasy defense with confidence this week in fantasy leagues. And conversely, Chicago's rookie running back Khalil Herbert, man, he really impressed last week. He ran for 100 yards against the Tampa Bay run defense that entered, allowing just 40 rushing yards per game to running backs. So he's a solid start, even despite facing a Niners D that I think is going to put points on the board, especially recording those sacks and hopefully getting some turnovers going the Niners' way for once.
Yeah, we're knocking on some wood for that one. But, well, there's a lot of teams that are currently on their Week 8 bye, so I know a lot of people are out there scouring the waiver wire. Is there a name or two maybe on the 49ers roster that might be worth picking up this week?
So I don't have a great answer for bye week help this week, but I do have a 49ers player worth stashing right now. It just takes some patience. But Jeff Wilson, he could make a name for himself when he does return from his injury. We said Elijah Mitchell, the rookie, is basically the only back that the 49ers trust right now. Wilson is rostered in just 16% of Yahoo leagues. At minimum, he could be the goal line guy, the third down back. And don't forget, the 49ers, for as frustrating as their season has been, their fantasy playoff schedule looks about as highly as favorable as any team in the league. So Jeff Wilson is maybe out there to be rostered in deeper fantasy leagues.
Definitely worth noting, and I'll definitely be picking him up as soon as we jump off this call. But let's wrap this up. We're looking around the league in Week 8. There's a number of games, another number of matchups, but what piques your interest around the league?
I'm looking forward to Dallas, Minnesota, primetime Sunday night. Hopefully Dak Prescott's calf injury is healthy. And that game has the highest over-under projected total this week, like 55 points, a bunch of fantasy stars. I have CeeDee Lamb personally everywhere. I have Zeke, Dalvin Cook. That should be a fun one to watch come Sunday night in primetime.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why he is the fantasy expert. Dalton Del Don with Yahoo Sports. We appreciate the time. And don't forget, set your rosters accordingly, all right?
Thanks, Keiana.
home.